Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Greg here. Season 9, Episode 3, the Overwatch Collective podcast. Special one today. I have two of my buddies, one to my left and one to my right. We are currently on active duty orders right now. We're in the East Coast. Figured we'd hop on here and do a quick podcast just to kind of have some fun, crack some beers. Today is July 4th, so God bless America. Happy 4th of July. And have some good conversation. These guys support mental health and everything the Overwatch Collective is doing. So enough of me talking. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So here's the thing. So when we have two guests on the podcast, what I have them do is Rochambeau to see who goes first. So let me hold your drink. You guys are going to have to Rochambeau to see who goes first.
All right.
All right, so wait a minute. Are we doing best 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3, go.
2 out of 3?
1, 2, 3.
We got to shoot on 3.
Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Boom. So that's 1 out of 3.
Okay.
So we got to do it 3 more, or 2 more times.
All right.
Go.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You go first.
All right, you're going first. Quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Renee Henry, ME1 in the guard, been in for 21 years now. So outside, I am contractor, do air conditioning, things like that. So we in and out the heat, playing around, it's all good. And here, ME1, that I get to spend time with my guys, doing what we do, guns, activities in the field, whatever they ask of us pretty much, you know. So been at it for a long time, met a lot of great people, met a lot of not great people. So, you know, you just deal with all aspects of life, walkthroughs. Best thing probably about it is SEC football and our walks of life deal with it. So when it comes to roll turd, go Tigers, LSU World Championship baseball this year. So yeah, man, it's probably one of the best times being with these guys during the seasons is getting the competition to sit back on weekends of drill, watch football, scream at each other, have some drinks. It's all in fun. It's one of our best things, I think, probably of being in a guard is the smashing of the heads of the seasons of, you know, walks of ball is one of our best things. And since we are SEC country, that's probably what makes it the most funnest for me is being in a hotel room, screaming at each other, yelling during games, and just that's what makes life great. Even though we're away from our families, it's still a great time to have fun with my friends, brothers nowadays, because I would do anything for them as I would, you know. So yeah, it's one of the greatest things ever is meeting all these walks of life and having these guys.
Hell yeah. Thanks, brother. You're up next.
Hey, guys. I'm John Holtzheimer. Paid out first class in the Coast Guard. I've been in almost 12 and did 6 years active duty. I'm almost at 6 years on the reserve side. Me and Henry were actually stationed together when I was just a little bitty old 3rd class, fresh out of A school.
That's right. It's a good time, man.
Civilian side, I'm a deputy with the Madison County Sheriff's Office there in Huntsville, Alabama. One of the biggest things I'm a part of locally within my department is I'm on our CIT team, which is our critical response team, which is in Huntsville, and the way the Alabama laws are written is kind of a downgrade to what I actually do on the mental health side. So CIT, most of the departments, CIT is critical response. So basically just you go to a call, you recognize the signs of suicide or the signs that somebody is in crisis, and then you kind of push them out to other resources, whether it be an actual community mental health officer or give them resources like locally it's Wellstone or the EPOD at Huntsville Hospital to get them psychiatric treatments. But for me as a deputy, I'm actually sworn in by Judge Barger, Mr. Frank Barger, and I have the ability to respond to a call, notice those signs that somebody is in crisis, and then actually go through the full commitment process into a facility and start that process and get them the help that they need. Other than that, roll tide like I told Henry a few minutes ago. Diehard Alabama fan, and I was a fan before Saban was the coach. I know he's not the coach anymore, but just so you know, I was a fan during the very lonely Mike Shula days.
Prior to Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
I like it.
I
All
wasn't
right,
even
cool.
born then.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate the introduction, guys. So kind of did come up with a little bit of an outline for this. Obviously, it's July 4th, so we need to go celebrate America, but we wanted to hop on and do a quick podcast. So I kind of want to ask you guys first, talk about some of the challenges that we have as reservists in the United States military while juggling civilian careers. On the outside, I'm a police officer, deputy sheriff. You do air conditioning and do magic with all of that. But a lot of people think the military reserves is just 3 days a month or 2 days a month, 2 weeks in the summer, but there's actually a lot more that goes into it. So can you guys touch on some of the challenges that our service members face in the reserve?
I think the biggest thing that we face is maintaining our ability to be effective in the military, and then also juggling all the aspects of, 40-hour work weeks, being a husband and a father, all the things that come with kids, school, sporting events, play dates, because my babies are still super young, so they're in daycare, even though we call it school. And then also, while juggling all of that, still maintaining the 4,000 group chats we have on the military and keeping up with all the things that happen before the drill weekend to make the drill weekend successful, maintaining quals, whatever that particular weekend looks like, maintaining being all in on the military, all in our civilian jobs, all in as husbands and fathers, and then all in with I don't want to say the most important part. One of the key parts is maintaining all in within ourselves and making sure that we're staying okay, and, taking what little time we have to kind of reground ourselves and keep ourselves mentally safe. I guess, mentally safe would be the proper word or phrase there.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
No, I being in my world is this is busy season for me. Being a contractor, of course. So you got me here let's just step back 1 second. It's July 4th weekend. We love to be with our families, and we're here. So that's already, enough to be like, really? We're away, they're there, they're at the house, they're having a good time without us. And look, you know what? I'm not getting down about it because I'm here with my brothers. We're going to have a good time no matter what. So, but still the fact of we're away from our families. It's cool. It is what it is. We signed up for this, whatever it takes. It is. We do it. Me, from a job aspect, this is my super busy season. Air conditioning, generators. I live in the South. They're two most important things. Luckily, I have a strong son that is in it with me, that is taking care of business at home, let alone I just hired a general manager about a month and a half ago, which he's been a rock star. So this is probably my first season with the lower stress amount that I've had in absolutely forever in my life of being in the Guard. I have two people there just really, really swinging for the fence for us, which is probably bringing my stress level down from 100 to probably 40. And look, it's been very, very, very nice not to take on a phone call all day, every day, and being able to concentrate on what we're doing and try to roll with that while still just juggling the some of the mismanaged things that happen over the last few days. Shit,
we've been almost 10 years now.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember a time when we were at Sector, even on drill weekends. So Sector, the first unit that I was at, the reservists would come in there at the beginning. Y'all kind of ran the show, and then we got a new OIC, if you will, changed the rules where active duty had to come in and be with the drilling reservist throughout the drill weekend to go do boardings, SAR cases, which actually happened like maybe twice. River or levee patrols or whatever, they wanted an active duty guy with the reservist. And I can't remember a time where Renee got to go more than 20 minutes without answering a phone or, having to deal with some sort of billing issue or, hey, go to this place, pick up this part. He lives close to New Orleans, so he's relatively close to home, but he's got other priorities, and then still having to maintain running I would argue, a rather successful business on the outside.
Yeah. No, it's been fun. But
so then how does that affect the family life as we kind of transition, obviously? So, well, you both have talked about, and what I've experienced as well, is we juggle so many things. And in this military and first responder community, you have a lot of people that are first responders that are in the military reserves or were in the military that get out and then become firefighters or police officers. But a lot of the stuff that we do impacts our family as well. So both family men. Can you touch on some of the impacts that the first responder and military life have on the families?
So I've got, like I said a few minutes ago, I've got 2 babies. I got a 5-year-old daughter and I got an almost 4-year-old son. August 17th is when he'll turn 4. I recently got back from actually when we come off orders on this ADT or these 2 weeks or whatever, will be the year mark of me being home. I was gone for 9 months. I was in Guam working with the Navy doing.
And we missed you, just so you know. We did. We missed him, Jonah.
Yeah. Doing some pretty cool things out there. And when I got home, I was actually surprised. When I got home, I met my kids at my parents' house, and they actually ran to my wife because she had been with them for 9 months, and I was kind of out of the picture. Wasn't there to wake my daughter up. And now we had what my daughter called sleepovers, where I would prop my iPad up and I would be with them through bedtime routine, but it still wasn't exactly the same. But when I came home, I can't go take out the trash now without both my kids saying, "Daddy, you going back on your long trip?" Even for this ADT, it absolutely destroyed me when I told my daughter, I was like, "Hey, I've got to go for a couple of weeks. You and Mommy are going to have a lot of fun. You and Bubba are going to have a lot of fun. You got a lot of cool things coming up on school with school. You're probably not really going to notice that I'm gone." And then she absolutely had to come apart as I was loading her in the car a weekend so she could go to school, and then I could load my truck up and drive the 7 hours south of Mississippi for drill or for the start of our ADT. And I chose to go on this deployment because I figured they would be young enough that they really wouldn't remember a whole lot. Because I would have to do a deployment anyway with the unit that we're at and the contract that I signed with the bonus and all that nonsense. I thought they would be young enough where it wouldn't affect them all much. And let me tell you, I was absolutely wrong. Like, previously, I'm a deputy, so there comes call volume changes day to day, responsibilities change, not really change, but when I have to employ certain responsibilities are changed day to day, call to call. So they're supposed to be home at 8:00 most nights with the present position that I'm in with the sheriff's office, and there are very few times that I'm actually home at 8:00. Most of the time, I might be home 8:30. I might be home early 6:45, or there's nights where I'm not home till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on what we got going on. And then for those days, I don't get to see my kids and my wife for maybe just a few minutes, walking in the door, taking off a uniform, hugs, kisses, in the bed. They go to school, wife goes to work, and then I get up, put on a uniform, and go right back to work. So I don't have a solution on how we solve that problem, but the impacts on the kids and my wife, she's an absolute rock star, being able to handle being an only child, having, I don't want to say everything handed to her hand and foot, but not having a whole lot of responsibilities because her mom was a stay-at-home mom. She didn't have to do a whole lot to moving into our house together. And then here I am gone, arguably 85% of the time, just because, life's expensive. Kids are expensive,
Yeah, amen. That's the truth. No, I've been blessed, bar none. My wife's a rock star. She rolls with it. We got one son. He's pretty good with it. And it's funny because, he's about to be 23 years old. We're thick as thieves. We're very, very close. Works with me side by side. So I get to see him every single day and deal with him. And, we do have our differences because we work together. And it's father and son. I mean, hold a flashlight. If you're not holding it where you want, somebody's getting screamed at. You know how that scenario goes. So, but other than that, look, this is those times my son will just call me up and be like, "Hey, Dad, what you doing?" I love it to death. It's probably one of the most heartwarming things. But my wife is very involved in my military career. She's here for the big events. She helped me cook for the Christmases, the summer times, for years. As a matter of fact, when I was at Sector, we held almost every single morale event at our home. Everybody swam. I'm not supposed to probably say this on air, but the guys jumped off of ladders into the pool. So many violations. So many. But we held several morale events at our home. My wife absolutely loves entertaining. That is one of her biggest things. She is a giver. And I love her for that because if she could take care of anybody, she will. Literally, I mean, one of our what's the officer chief guys? Mr. Baldwin. What was Mr. Baldwin? The officer chief guys. What's their rank? What's their call again?
Officer Chiefs?
Yeah, warrant officer. One of our warrant officers from Boston would not eat crawfish. We had the hugest crawfish boil, and he had to have hot dogs and hamburgers. My wife literally cooked hot dogs and hamburgers just for him to have a good time. She's like, oh, he's like, I don't eat mud bugs, so look, I'm going to do this. And she literally cooked that just for the warrant officer. She is making sure everybody is having a good time and relaxed or whatnot, and just she's willing to have a good time with us. So that has made my military career very, very easy. And now actually that I'm here back at 308, it's been nice because we're able to bring the camper. She can spend the weekend, hang out, and I can see her every day. So she absolutely loves it. So it has actually been pretty easy for me. Thank God. Thank God. My son's not young. When he was young, I did it, and he just kind of rolled through it. Most of his younger life, I was at sector, so it wasn't no big deal.
Yeah. And so I'm sure you guys have both seen it, like I have too, and I'm sure everybody out there listening has seen it too, where they don't have wives that are rock stars.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of challenges at the home front, and sometimes coming to drill or getting on orders, or for the police side or fire side is, I'm going to avoid the drama, the mess that's going on at home. So I'm going to pick up some overtime because that's where I'm with the boys. That's where I'm with the crew. I can go on calls, the adrenaline's there, and I'm making money. But you're putting off the shit that's happening at home that you need to focus on, but you're not. So have you guys experienced that before really quickly?
I personally haven't. Obviously, being in the military.
Not personally, but like friends.
I've seen it all. And I think the biggest solution to that is, I hate to be derogatory, but us as military members, we've got to avoid the dependopotamuses. And I know that sounds bad, but...
Is that a sea creature?
Pretty much. Is finding a spouse who's actually that you can jive with, somebody who you can actually have open-ended conversations with and it not be a judgment zone, and then having somebody that you can call. Like my wife is my best friend. We've been together 17 years. We started dating summer of our 8th grade year into our freshman year of high school. And we've been together ever since. Coming up on, I proposed in 2018. We got together in 2012. Now we've been together, or we've been married. Next year we'll be 8 years married together. Is finding a spouse, and not just marrying somebody to get out of the barracks or marrying somebody because they got pregnant or whatever, is actually finding somebody that you're compatible with and making effective life choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, smart.
And
I think that was good. That was good.
I think that would be a great solution to most of the guys in the first responder world, because it's a lot on us emotionally and physically to do the military thing, do the first responder thing, or even really any civilian job, and then maintain a secondary career in conjunction with your primary career that pays the vast majority of your bills. Having somebody that you can actually turn to, and not turn to your spouse and then it turn into an argument. What do you mean you got to go back and work overtime? Or what do you mean you've got another deployment? Or, hey, a hurricane happens, specifically for us in the Coast Guard. Hurricane happened. I've got to go do whatever, wherever. Yeah. It almost feels, you almost have to have that selfish argument of, hey, look, I know you want to be with me and I want to be with you, but there are obligations that I had, either that we agreed on collectively while we were married or while we were in a relationship, or I was already doing this prior to the relationship. You knew that. So this is kind of what you signed up for, is I'm going to have to be gone because I don't get to tell the U.S. government, no. It's not how that works.
So essentially not doing the thing where it's like, get out of boot camp and being like, hey, I'm going to go get married, have kids, because you get more money, more dependence.
Yeah.
No. Look, I pride my wife. We honestly, our probably biggest arguments is business. It's not anything else but business. And that's what's rough. So my wife has actually been able to roll with the punches. Like she says, we know what we signed up for. So me and my wife love to be just together. We'll go to the beach by ourselves. We'll take the boat out, go hang out, and we could physically and mentally have the greatest of times without anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I've been married 25 years this year. We've been together almost 28. So our biggest things, I set out, I'm Catholic Christian or whatnot. So I set out to, one marriage is all I ever want to be in. So we better figure it out. If we argue, we'll go our separate ways for a few hours that day, whatever it may take to come back to mentally think about it, calm down and chat it out. And of course, get back together and just, hey, I'm sorry I did this, blah, blah, blah. So that's probably the only issue I've ever had. Was it sucks because I'm pretty much sure it's work, but no, as far as, just anything else, it's my wife's my best friend. There's nothing that we really can't or won't do together. We take our time, we spend our time, and that's where the mental health probably comes in. The fact of that we reconnect when we're outside of these bounds.
That open line of communication with your spouse, at least for me, is the biggest thing. My wife doesn't like to hear the gory stories, the blood splatter,
they don't need to,
those kind of things. But sometimes those calls, reverting back to my civilian career, some of those nasty, gory calls, those are the ones that affect us the most. And you have to kind of have to skirt the line. But sometimes I tell my wife, like, "Hey, look, babe, I'm sorry, but I've got to be brutally raw right here so I can get this off my chest. If not, I'm going to sit in that recliner, I'm going to open a beer, or I'm going to go do something, and I'm going to seclude myself. And then now I'm no longer effective to you. I'm no longer effective to our 2 kids. I'm no longer effective in this household. And that's not fair to them, not fair to me."
Right.
So then my solution as an individual, which is not probably the best solution, is I'm going to go back to work. Whether I go sit in a parking lot or I go and I try to get after it proactively, those are the times where I shouldn't be doing that. But being able to talk with her and be like, "Hey, this is what I'm dealing with." And she'll be like, "Hey, you know what? Maybe you need to take a couple of days off. You have the time. Just take it, regroup, wash your car, cut the grass, do whatever it is that you do at the house when I'm not here. Recenter yourself, reground yourself, go for a run." Because that's what I do when we get in arguments. I'll be like, "Hey, I'm going for a run." And
Forrest Gump status.
I hate running.
Best thing ever, bro, is exercise and mentality. But you know what you got away from? You got away from snapping me your calls. When you'd be on some of your crazy calls, you would send me a snap of the whole thing. That was the funniest thing. My wife would be like, I'm like, I'm listening to Jonah. He's snapping me on one of his calls. And I would sit there and be like, dude, that's the funniest stuff. I could sit there and just relate. Like, I've been there. I've done that. I spent 10 years in law enforcement. I'm traffic sergeant for quite a while of it. But to sit back and go, Jonah's sending me a snap on, "Hey, dude, let me tell you about this call." Yeah. And I can literally just sit back and laugh about it like, hey, maybe he needed to talk about it, whatever it may be, whether it was bad or whether it was goofy as hell. It was probably some of my funnest snaps that I got. Because, of course, with kids, that's all you get in touch with them nowadays is Snapchat. My son, one in all of his friends. But having Jonah snap me his, "Hey, dude, let me tell you about this call," was some of my funnest shit to watch. Honestly, was the best ever. Like Jonah sending me one of his calls that was out in the sticks, something retarded. It is just great. Just so you know, it was great to have him.
I actually got rid of Snapchat because I started finding myself spending more time on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. I still have a Facebook because that's how I keep up with some of the family members that don't live locally. But I did deactivate my Facebook for several months and just I reactivated to my Facebook and deleted all my other social media so I could be a little bit more present at home.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Definitely a good thing. And I think it's great that you have open communication with the wife, because one of the big things that we see in this community, I feel like, is you experience all this shit at work or you have all these feelings, but when you come home, a lot of the times it's, "Hey, don't bring that shit home. Don't talk about it. You're bringing down the mood." Or if you're feeling off and you feel like you can't talk to your spouse or your significant other, then eventually, this is like a 20, 25, 30 year long career. Is that really going to last? And I feel like that's where our community is so good at wearing a mask, hiding our emotions, right? You put on the ballistic vest and you're like Superman. You're the firefighter. You're supposed to be the big, bad, tough dude, or you're on the SWAT team and nothing's supposed to affect you. And unfortunately, that's where it leads to divorce, substance misuse in our community, and suicide. And obviously that's what we focus on a lot and are trying to prevent, is the suicide prevention and awareness. And with that, I think this is a good time to kind of transition into your guys' stories with suicide. I understand there's two from you. You're going to share one. And then collectively, you're going to share one about a Coast Guard service member. So since you have two, do you want to share one? You share one, then you share one?
Sure.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right, cool. Take whatever feels right.
So I'm not going to give a name or anything like that. But my very first unit, I was on a river tender in Buchanan, Tennessee. So when I left boot camp, you get the dream sheet like most every military member gets, and you can put wherever you want to go. And most of the time, you get nowhere that you actually want to be. And for the needs of the service, you go just kind of wherever. On my dream sheet in boot camp, I put any boat that does law enforcement, and I got a river tender 2.5 hours from my hometown. So I'm born and raised in this little town of Hazel Green. Is from the back property where I grew up. You could literally throw a rock and hit the Tennessee state line. Like, we were furthest north of Alabama as you can get. And then I get a little small town. Actually, Hank Williams Jr. lives there, just outside Clarksville. And I was like, what am I going to do on a river tender? So I show up and I'm like, hey, what kind of law enforcement do we do? And the BM1 there was like, hey, buddy, we don't even have guns on this boat. We drop buoys for, barges pushing coal, oil, whatever it is that's transiting up the rivers. I was like, all right, great career. Like I say, great career, great first unit. But there was an MK1 there. He geo bachelored there. So his wife and kids were kind of off. I don't remember exactly where he lived originally and where they were, but he was down in the South. I think they were somewhere up north. And we spent a lot of time together playing basketball in the parking lot, working on his car, smoking cigars, just kind of doing our thing down there. Couple years later, I get a text from a BM1, one of the ops boss on the boat, and he sent me an article, and he was like, "Hey, you remember this?" And I was like, "Absolutely. I spent a lot of time with this guy." Absolutely zero signs, which there may have been some life things that happened after me and him kind of parted ways when I went to A school, moved on my active duty career. He moved on with his life and his career. I didn't really keep up with him other than, the happy birthdays on Facebook, the random Facebook memories, Instagram stories, those kind of things, or your phones where we took a picture together and your phone automatically says, hey, you remember this day? It'd be a random, quick, hey, how are you? How you been? Miss you, bro. And then we just kind of have a conversation for a little bit, and then we both kind of go do our own thing. I don't really know the circumstances on why he committed suicide. As an individual, which I wasn't very proactive in keeping up with him all the time. I wasn't like stalking his Facebook page, like, hey, I wonder what this guy's doing. It affected me for a little bit, and more so, and I say it affected me, I mean more so just kind of going back and remembering the times together and trying to think, was it going on then? And I just didn't. Granted, I joined at 18, so I was still a young cat.
Yeah. Like, were there any signs?
Yeah.
Was there a cry for help or?
Yeah, and maybe him pulling into us. I mean, I was in E3. He was a first class. Maybe that was that cry for help, because E6 to E6, you kind of want to maintain. We like to think we try to be, collective and being open within the E6 mess, but sometimes you don't want to affect the way somebody thinks of your decision-making process, which granted in the Coast Guard, we're not really doing a whole lot of warfighter things.
Sure about that?
I mean,
supposed to be right now.
I mean, outside of collectively, arguably, we can say that the Coast Guard, we've been in every major war, but we actually haven't hit the front lines as a branch. We kind of fall in the back burner, fill in, the security roles outside, but we still have the military functions and we still have decisions that we have to make for our younger guys. And we don't want to cause any strife within that group in their thought process on, well, is this guy, can he make effective decisions? Is he really right for this job? Do we need to kind of push him to the side a little bit and put somebody in who's a little bit more headstrong? It might be the right word there. So
you didn't see any of those.
I didn't see any of that.
And you were completely surprised when you found out?
Yeah, absolutely surprised.
I appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
No, I'll actually give you an instance. I'll give you two of them. One which I didn't even talk to you guys about because it's been years and years and I forget about it or whatnot. My godfather, Vietnam vet. My only remembrance of that man was the VA hospital. him trying to stop drinking, and going there and watching him just shaking. My mom's brother, he was just shaking all the time. That one, nowadays, now that I'm military, and it really kicks me back to thinking about it, that Vietnam was such a rough time for these guys, and when he came back, I was young, very young, so we went to visit him, and of course it was VA hospitals, and it didn't click to me as a kid. I knew, I didn't know no different. My birthday presents for him were just something wrapped in a newspaper, because he was just so messed up. And the last thing, when he died or whatnot, he was trying to get off the alcohol. That's why he was in VA. They found him dead, and of course in a hotel room from alcohol poisoning. Wound up throwing up, I guess, getting so drunk throwing up, and that's what killed him. So now as an adult, now I can really kind of think about it. Not as a kid. Like I said, I didn't know any better. It didn't affect me as a kid. But now I'm like, damn, that's what killed my godfather. It was the Vietnam War, and it screwed him up. And just, it makes me think back and like, damn, I wish I would have been able to actually know him better to talk about things. But like I said, I was young.
I mean, yeah, Vietnam, it was that macho, like, nothing affects us, nothing, like you go do the war, you come home and you go right back to doing whatever you did at home. And then now, not to put a stigma on what we're trying to do here on this podcast, is now mental health is almost feels like a fad. Like, oh, I have this depression, I have this anxiety, or I have this going on. In all reality, like, we're all adults here. Stress happens. Just because you were stressed out doesn't mean that you were automatically depressed or you automatically have to go on medication. Do some things to ground yourself and really focus back on yourself. And that might solve some of the problems. I don't want to say that doesn't change the fact that there are people out in this world that are bipolar 1, that suffer from schizophrenia, that suffer from multi-personality, and then you get real in depth, you get in manic episodes, and then manic episodes show different personality disorders or emotional disorders within that mania. I'm not talking about any of that stuff, but like for your uncle, if back then we were focused more on the mental health side, a better understanding on PTSD and Vietnam War was
brutal.
Yeah, that was a rough war. You got Agent Orange just being scattered across the field, hovering like what we see in downtown San Diego, Las Vegas, in terms of the smog that we see out there. Agent Orange in Vietnam, that's what these guys were seeing and breathing, and who knows what that does.
Definitely come along with after deployment and with mental health and everything.
I mean, even recently I went to Guam. I took on an administrative role trying to help the Coast Guard push a process forward. It's the first time we were out there. Post-deployment, we have now congressionally mandated, we have the Yellow Ribbon Program, which talks about, benefits, family life, VA stuff, the mental health stuff. I mean, pre and post-deployment.
This is the first time this has ever happened. And I love it. We're just going to keep rolling with it.
Pre and post-deployment, we had to go see a mental health person, talk about if there was anything that was long-term effective. Which, granted, where I was, we didn't see combat or anything, and I didn't deal with anything that was it was a stressful deployment in terms of what my job was, but emotionally, physically, all that stuff, it was actually pretty easy. The only thing that I dealt with was walking away and having to turn that stress off, basically handing the book over and be like, all right, guys, this is the groundwork that I have available for you guys based on the present knowledge. Y'all need to take this and then kind of continue fine tuning what this is going to look like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
That I think that was the hardest part, and the control factor there.
Gotcha. So you did have another story about suicide that you wanted to share, right?
Yeah.
Was there was somebody else?
Yeah.
So let's spend a few minutes talking about that, and then we'll wait for Henry to get back, and you can share his.
Had another guy when I first reported in New Orleans. I lived in the barracks for a little bit before I got my apartment, and we lived across the hall from each other, kind of hung out in the day room, because the barracks that we were in at base New Orleans was not, we didn't have TVs or anything in the room. You had to go to the actual common area to watch TV, play pool, or, whatever's in that room. So it was me, him, and a couple other guys. We'd spend a lot of time hanging out there when I moved into my apartment. He'd come hang out at the apartment for a while and then go back to the barracks, because we're at base New Orleans, the boat that he was on, Coast Guard Pamlico, he was stationed right there. So he lived in the barracks full time. He didn't have the option of going to a hotel room, or not hotel room, going into an apartment or anything, because he wasn't married or anything. For me, I was stationed at Sector, which is about 35 miles or so from base, roughly.
Yeah.
So base New Orleans on the East Bank, where I was stationed was on the West Bank. So you got to drive through basically all of downtown New Orleans, just to even get to the West Bank. And then you got to drive from the West Bank through Gretna into Algiers, that kind of thing. So I was, based on the command structure, I was allowed to get an apartment. A couple years after leaving active duty life, while I was in Sector, we hung out a lot. And then I moved away. He went off to A school. He did his thing. He moved off to Texas. And I'll be honest with you, like, his suicide didn't really affect me. And there's some details there that I don't really want to talk about a whole lot, because that most people be able to figure out. But for me, his particular scenario kind of goes back to the conversations that me and him had several times. Because I don't want to say, while we were together, he was making a lot of questionable choices as an 18-year-old. And I think any 18-year-old that's listening to this podcast has made some really dumb decisions. And his decision, I was like, hey, bro, let's not marry the first girl that we think we fall in love with. And if it works for you, that was my case. I've never legitimately dated anybody but my wife.
Really? That's impressive.
Yep. Never dated anybody but my wife. And I say, like, I had girlfriends, pre 8th grade, but I mean, as a 7th grade or 5th grade, dating, it's right. Like, ooh, whoever held my hand, we're together now. And then that was, that's the extent of the relationship. We're not going on dates. We're not going to each other's houses. We're not doing any of that stuff. My wife was the first person that I actually kissed, the first person that I actually met her father while we were still dating. First girl I ever took to a date.
Nice.
Cool, dude.
Everything in a relationship, my wife was my first.
So he married young, and then
met young,
married young.
Yeah.
Which was, that's impressive. I'm not going to lie to you.
Him and his wife ended up having kids fairly early on in their relationship. He made second class. We kept up on Facebook. There was a little bit of some issues going on at home, and I kind of picked up on that via, anybody who breaks up, they post all those sad things on Facebook, all those like, hey, talk to me posts. So I reached out to him, would never get a call back, never get a text, or never get anything. He ended up getting into a situation with his wife. During that situation, his wife ended up passing away, and then he ended up committing suicide. And that was kind of hard, because it almost brought back to me, like, you know what? Maybe I should have pressed him harder. Maybe I should have been a little bit more stern in my counter arguments to the decisions that he was making. Ultimately, we can't change when we're not presently in. Like, if I was in the house with him, then maybe we could have changed something. But being in Huntsville, him being in Texas, like, we're so far away. There's nothing that I could have really done, and I wasn't a part of his day-to-day life to know what that relationship actually looked like. But it definitely brought up some thoughts within myself, like, hey, is there something I could have done? Could I have done that? And ultimately, I will never know, other than the thought processes within my brain. But I can't dwell on that, because what's done is done. There's no way for me to change that, other than applying the new thought process in future, possibly similar situations.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Which in this case, I really hope I don't have to deal with that again.
But you learn from that.
Yeah.
Right. So and I feel like after every time we lose somebody from suicide, you always ask yourself, were there any signs? Is there anything I could have done? Hopefully, and that's a great way to honor them. Be like, hey, I'm going to learn from this, and be like, can I take anything on to the next time I recognize signs of somebody? Was there somebody else that you want to mention who died by suicide before?
Buddy of mine's son.
Yeah. So let's touch on that, and then we'll get into Alicia.
Yeah. So, buddy of mine, I've seen the kids born, son and daughter. The one thing I think I take from it is dad was not a whole lot in the picture. Chose work over family. Left the kids home. Traveled for work. He was only worried about the money, and I hate to even say it, but I think he was more worried about money, paying shit off, and race cars, because that's what I knew him for. He loved racing, wanted his kid to race with him, which was cool. I mean, you want your kid to be involved, but when you're not there,
enough for them. I think that's what kind of sways their brain a little bit. Son was ADD, very, very wild child, but a cool little kid. I love Dawson to death. Went to NOMA, which is a New Orleans Maritime Military Academy out of New Orleans. Captain of the wrestling team, was doing good. Did the vaping as most kids do nowadays. Senior year, Valentine's Day, we find out, he went sit in the backyard and took his dad's gun and took his life. No reason to rhyme behind it. Spoke with dad about it till to this day. Dad was a little harsh on him, just trying to figure out, hey, dude, I don't know what friends you're hanging around with, this, that, or the other. I wish you wouldn't vape, this, that, and the other. But in my personal opinion, I think that when you're not there enough for your son, you're forcing the son maybe on your wife because you just wanted, I don't know the mental process, because I always wanted to be there to watch my kids grow up. Probably affected the kid, maybe made him make different choices or whatnot. Not being there to say, hey, what do you want to do? And be more into what he wants to do versus what you want to do. So I think that probably or possibly had an effect on that. And I just blew my mind that his son just, like I said, high school, senior year, wrestled, was in good spirits, and just to hear that out of a kid that I was close to the family, it just freaking blew my mind. Not knowing if, what, or why, and probably never will till today.
Yeah, and that's the hard part about losing people to suicide, right? Like there are so many questions you have, and there are so many people that are affected by it, and you have so many questions that unfortunately you will never find the answer to unless they leave a suicide note or something that you can read that answers.
I mean, even most of the time, like on the civilian career, the times where I've responded to suicide attempts or actual suicide calls, the times that there's been a left, it rarely ever says the specific reasons. It's more of an I'm sorry letter. I'm sorry that I've let myself get to this point. Yeah. I wish things could be different, but this is the solution.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings up a really good point. If you notice somebody who goes from really, really depressed and then all of a sudden they're really happy and they're giving things away, and when they get to that point, most of the time they've already made the decision. That decision gives them peace, and they're just waiting for whatever the date is or whatever the way is. They're just waiting for that time to be perfect until they complete their act.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part for us to deal with is we as humans, we see somebody depressed, we may reach out, we may do something, like we may try to talk them a little bit, and then we see them happy, and like we're subconsciously programmed to be like, oh, he's happy,
everything's better,
problem solved.
Right.
And in reality, that happy moment, that is the biggest cry for help right there. When in their brain, they've said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Whatever the means be, that decision is final. And that is the biggest cry for help that we naturally assume is we're all good. And I think that is probably the biggest struggle for us when we experience those things. We're like, well, everything seemed fine, but we go back 5 months ago and we're like, crap.
So maybe you rewind.
Yeah. And I think that's where, because we as humans, at least my thought process, we're very, I don't want to say simple-minded, but we're very kind of in the moment people. So if somebody's happy right now, we don't really think about what's going on in the back of the brain there. We don't think about what's going on at the home life. We're thinking about, oh, Renee's super happy right now. Everything must be going great for him. Not knowing that, not saying it's in your case, but the business is crumbling. The mortgage is 6 months behind. We don't really think about that. We look at the present right now. Sure. Renee's smiling. Absolutely. We're drinking a beer. We're talking about 4th of July. We're on this podcast. We're doing all these things. Everything's great in Henry's life.
Yeah. Oh, you never know.
And we're so good at holding a mask and hiding our emotions. And a lot of the time, that's why, like, when we come to our drill weekends or even at work in the police department, fire department, whatever, you walk by people and you're like, yo, what's up, Jonah? How are you doing? Oh, I'm good, Greg. How are you? Good. And these conversations as you're passing each other, and it's like nobody really opens up and talks about it, which is something that we need to work on in the military, and to reduce the number of suicides in our military community, which ultimately leads us to talking about one of the members who you guys knew, who was a member of Port Security Unit 308, Alicia, how do you pronounce her last name?
Bowles.
Alicia Bowles. So unfortunately died by suicide earlier this year. So let's spend a few minutes talking kind of through that story. Saw some of the signs, the effects on the unit after, effects on you guys after.
So, it was crazy because Alicia, she was active duty. She was, I think, Title 10 or whatever she was. So, we passed each other in the hallway and just always, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, we wanted to becoming friends on Snapchat. And that's how we kind of connected real good. It was just kind of funny that few things we always snapped on, little goofy stuff. And it's probably a little bit personal. She was a lesbian. She snapped me one day. She's like, hey, she knew my wife. She had seen her a couple of times, and she's like, hey, I'm dating a blonde now. She's like, so we got something in common. And it was funny, it was that thing. It made us laugh together. So it was like, hey, we're, and one of my comments was, oh, look, I must be a lesbian too. I love women. So of course it was always something funny to laugh about. So there was, if anything was going on, it was hidden, of course. And of course, me every day, I would go to, when I was at the gym, I would always, put out there, rinse, do, make sure I tagged her to it. She'd either give me, I'm exhausted or this, that. And some days she'd be like, hey, you know what? You got me in the gym today. Aces. I'm like, love it. Boom. Good for you. Blah, blah, blah. And we always just went back and forth. That was our communication. That was our fun time. Of course, get back to drill. We started talking more in public, having good conversations about something, anything. Always wanted, hey, let's get together, this, that, and the other. Let's have some drinks. And I knew she was in a relationship. She was really digging this girl. And I know alcohol affected it at one point in time because she made the comment, hey, I'm going to stay in tonight. I'm not drinking. I think it's really affected my relationship. I've got to really get back to my girlfriend and apologize. And I was like, oh, well, damn. So, you need to chat about it. Let's chat or whatnot. But I think she kept it in. And that's probably one of the things that, I know her suicide it wasn't deliberate. It was probably a little bit of alcohol and antidepressants, and it really put her down or whatnot. So, of course, there's never any knowledge to if that was the whole full scenario. But it was just like, the hell, you hear, unfortunately I heard about it from a chief from another unit that was on drill weekend that, hey, did you notice such and such person, this, that, and the other, and the things that ran through my head was about that situation, which made me be like, damn, should I reached out more, and I'd always ask, hey, you want to come hang out and talk? And it was always an excuse if she had something to do versus come hang out with us, which really kind of threw me off. And like I said, I loved Alicia. She was cool. Like I said, our main thing was Snapchat to talk, so that was our connection was, just jokes and, whether it be flipping each other off on Snapchat, that's how we communicated. And that's what I loved about her was the fact that we was able to communicate and have a good time, even though we was in two spectrums of life. And she was just that person that was like, hey, just, what are you doing? Oh, I'm here. I'm walking my dog. Hey, what you doing? I'm at the gym right now. You know what? I'm going to go to the gym after this. Or, hey, let's get together. Hey, let's look at each other's tattoos. Because literally her thing was, I need you to take your shirt off so I can check out your tattoos. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, chick. I think it's awesome because if that was in common, I dig it. It didn't bother me. I dig it. Let's chat it up. Let's go sit there and get tattoos together, whatever it takes. And yeah, just to know that happened sucks because she was young, man. She was, I loved watching her with her life, her dog, her friends, the active duty guys she was so close to. She took a welding class on, next to our unit. Like, she's just doing the coolest stuff, like expanding life, having fun with it. Hey, I want to weld. You know what? Let's go to class. Let's go weld. Yeah. That was coolest things about Alicia.
Yeah, I reported with Alicia. As soon as I left active duty, I went to a police academy, and then I reported to 308 a little while later, and Alicia and I actually reported together the same day. Our team was deployed to Gitmo, so literally it was just smaller than a skeleton crew. There was 4 or 5 of us that were reservists that reported post-deployment or post-deployment. So obviously we weren't going to the current deployment that the rest of the team was on. So we had a chance to kind of talk, hang out, and mine and her friendship was kind of the same way. It was a lot of Snapchat. I would send her Snapchats of my dog. She would send Snapchats of her dog. It was my kids helping me cook in the kitchen because that's kind of my natural release outside of going to run. Me and my wife argue. when life gets out of control for me, I'll kind of seclude. My wife will come up to me and say, hey, look, you either need to go to the grocery store and get something to cook in the kitchen, or you need to clean the house, one of the two. I know as a man, like stereotypically, that's kind of a weird thing, but I didn't grow up in a messy house, but once I got in the military, we had bears inspection and whatnot, and that kind of stuck with me very hard. So when my house is chaotic, my life is chaotic. So I'd bring the kids in with me, we'd cook, I'd Snapchat her, and kind of the biggest change within Alicia's life that I personally noticed, and I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention with my own personal life going on, is I Snapchatted her, and then it would go, typically I'd Snapchat her and it'd be within a couple of minutes I was getting a Snapchat back.
Right. Yep.
And it went from I'd Snapchat her and she would open it within a couple of minutes, but she would never respond. And then it went to, I would Snapchat her, it would sit there for 2-3 days, and then she would open it. A couple of days later, she would finally respond to it, which kudos to her to be able to remember what I Snapchatted her a couple of days ago. Because there's been times where I've Snapchatted Henry and be like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
What I
Oh my
Snapchatted
God.
you.
Yeah. That's the worst about that.
Yeah.
Like, I snap you.
Be like, at least let me go back and see what I Snapchatted so I can jump back in this conversation. We're just having that really awkward moment, like, what are we talking about? Like, you started this conversation.
Right.
And I actually found out from the team chat originally that something had happened, and then obviously I started making phone calls trying to figure out, like, hey, what happened? And I had known from previous shore weekends that she had found a girl that she really liked, and she was actually considering, having a lasting relationship with. And then one reason or another, that relationship didn't last, and I can only attribute to the lack of Snapchat communication. Was due to that breakup that happened where she just kind of secluded within herself and her world just kind of crumbled and didn't really know where to turn, how to turn, or anything like that. Or, I mean, it could be as simple as maybe she didn't want to reach out. She wanted to handle it by herself. We could have as many conversations, at least for me and her as an individual at drill weekends. It was really great conversations, but the conversations about really random things. There wasn't a whole lot of in-depth personal stuff. Like, I wouldn't go up to her and be like, hey, how's your girlfriend? Like, we were friends, but we weren't on that level of friendship. Maybe you were there, but me and her, we weren't, because when she was in shoreside, it was just a handful of guys, and we weren't really doing shoreside things. And then she kind of transferred over to engineering, and then our conversations were just in passing to and fro different things. But I will say, you want to talk about a workhorse? Alicia was an absolute workhorse. She was never not doing at the unit on her active duty orders or even on drill weekends. I mean, she was
Johnny on spot.
Go. You asked her, like, hey, where's this at? Or, hey, can you help me do this? I mean, there was no time. And she'd be like, yeah, I got you. Give me 5 minutes. Let me bang out this purchase order, or let me go. I've got to go do this real quick, and I'll come back to you. And she was always right there for anybody that ever needed her.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And so, when you guys found out the news, what were your initial reactions?
It hurt like hell.
Yeah. I mean, I actually stepped back and went to my Snapchat like, crap, you know what? She didn't respond to this. Man, I mean, I was just more or less like, I loved snapping, and I love seeing her smile and her laughter. Because, I mean, I would snap her some of the dumbest stuff. And when she would literally snap back, dying laughing, that always gets your heart feeling good when somebody is really basking in your retardedness of like, dude, this is my dude right here, just snapping me some of the, and just, and that's what I love. If I can make somebody laugh, I want to do it.
Yeah. I
will do the dumbest stuff to make you laugh. I don't care. And Snapchat's always got some kind of filter to make you laugh about something. And that's what I did. And that's what it was. And she would come back with something retarded to match it or whatnot. And it was always a goofy laugh. And that's what I loved about her, was being able to go back and forth with just the dumbest stuff to come up with. And it was just like, man, young life gone way too early to not to be able to fulfill life is one of my biggest things.
Mm-hmm. Initial reaction?
For me, it absolutely hurt like hell. One, I kind of had the same thoughts as Henry, and you know what? It's been a couple of days since I've seen her face. We've Snapchatted back and forth or whatever, and I go back and actually, before I ended up deleting Snapchat, I had several Snapchats that I sent her, and they were videos of me and the kids. And I was like, man, she never opened them.
Yeah. It sucks.
Never
Yep.
opened them.
I still
And
send them
that
every
was-
once in a while.
Yeah, and that
She's
was
still on my Snapchat.
yeah. And it's that was the hardest part of me, getting so focused on what I had going on that I never really, like, we were friends, say hi to each other on the weekends or whatever, but there wasn't, at least for me and her individually, there wasn't a personal connection, like a real depth, like not on the intimate side, but like the relationship me and my wife have, or me and my buddy Buck, who is my absolute best friend on the police side, both inside and outside of work. That me and her never really had that connection. But I was like, damn, I should have pressed hard for that, because she was an absolute genuine genuine as they get.
Right.
There was no hiding. She was straightforward, told you exactly what she felt, what she thought. There was no holding back. There was nothing on the BS side like we deal with in life, where you go talk to somebody, it's, hey, how are you? And then we kind of walk away grumbling, like,
Right.
hey, screw this person.
Yeah.
For her, I never had that thought walking away from her. It was always, man, that's a really cool person. Like, she is,
No doubt.
she's just absolutely genuine. And I think that's what hurts most, because I think that's what our world needs. We need more people to be real, even when real hurts. We need somebody to kind of call you out on your bullshit, call you out on whatever, or just be like, hey, man, that really sucks. And call me anytime. And Alicia would have been that person. If you called her at 3 o'clock in the morning, be like, hey, I need to talk, she's going to answer the phone. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, right, is that after we lose people to suicide, you continuously ask yourself, was there anything I could have done? All these questions that go through your head, right? You're thinking about the Snapchat. When did she do this? When did she make the decision? Is there anything else I could have done? And at some point, like, we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, is what I've learned through this. I mean, like, hey, we cannot have a relationship with everybody to know their deep, darkest secrets and all that stuff, right? Because, like, for me, it's my fiance now, and when this episode drops, it'll be my wife. For you, wife, and you got to keep like a close knit relationship with them. That, unfortunately, we can't know every single fellow police officer, every single fellow Coast Guardsman deep down inside. And I do want to ask one more question in regards to that death by suicide. What was the impact on the unit, and how did the unit kind of address that? Were there any changes to the unit or anything like that?
I would say the biggest thing that I noticed was, kind of personally for a second. So when this happened, our CO was relatively new.
Yeah.
And to me, the text to the group chat seemed very impersonal. It just kind of felt like, hey, this is what's going on. And that was kind of that. We're going to have a chaplain if you want to talk. It seemed, and I don't know our CO very, very well. I've never had a one-on-one conversation with him, so I can't say this is who he is as an individual. So I'm not saying that he's a bad guy by any means. But we have a very large unit, so it's hard to make 120 phone calls. But to me, the text seemed very ingenuine. I felt like it should have been passed down from the CO maybe to the department's head. The department head put their own little personal swing on it or whatever. Gotcha. I don't know the proper solution to that, but it felt very impersonal. And then it was a drill weekend where the chaplain almost felt forced on people.
Right.
Like, hey, the chaplain's here. Like, anytime you'd walk past any officer, it was, chaplain's here if you need to go talk. Chaplain's here, you need to go talk. Like
got it.
Like, right. Like, we're almost forcing
it down your throat to go talk.
And then, like, for me as an individual, if you force something down my throat, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to now. But just because you're telling me, it almost feels like I have to go do this when I may not necessarily want to go do this right now. Or maybe it's as simple as, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
I need some time to process my emotions before I step foot into actually talking to somebody further.
What were your thoughts on the reaction to the unit? How you all found out? Any changes that have been made since?
I mean, no, not really. Unfortunately, I'm not a very emotional person, so I don't put a lot of things into context. So, it hit one other member a lot harder than anybody, Lee, which was very close to her. I spent a lot of time with her. And Jones, it was all three. There was like the little trio that hung out a lot. But as far as the unit side, I mean, I can't say much about it. we held a little get together. We mourned her at the unit. They asked people to come up and talk, which I think maybe Lee and Jones were the only ones that really talked about it.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not big into getting in front of crowds. I do it, need be. I wasn't as close to her as they were to say a whole lot, but no, there wasn't a whole lot. Now, of course, it always increases the discussion about mental health and all of that, which, I mean, it's the right time, I guess, to discuss that because it happens. But yeah, I didn't put a lot of thought into it.
And then kind of transition here. One piece of advice that you would give anybody listening to this episode about taking care of themselves, prioritizing mental health, checking in on somebody, recognizing the signs of somebody who might be suicidal, having suicidal ideations, or really struggling. What's one or two things that you would?
Well, I'll kind of tell you this. This is my personal experience and this is what really hit me hard. This is what keeps me mentally focused on my life. Is my son's exact words to me was, if something happened to my dad, you'd have to make the coffin big enough for both of us because I can't live without it. And I said, dude, that was one of the biggest things that I would never let my son be without me.
Mm-hmm.
It's my best friend.
Yeah.
Love him to death.
Yeah.
So when he told me that, I said, there will never be a time that I will let my son ever think, why the fuck did my dad do it?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way I don't want to talk to my son every day.
Yeah.
No freaking way.
Yeah.
And that's probably what keeps my mind stable.
Appreciate you sharing that, brother. Appreciate you sharing that, man. One piece of advice. What do you got?
I think I'm not going to go too far in details. My mother-in-law's bipolar 1 and has been bipolar 1 mine and my wife's entire relationship. And this might be outside of the stereotypical cuff of the typical response in mental health is you have to take care of yourself first, take care of your family first before you can even begin to strive to reach outside of what you know and what your immediate responsibility are to help somebody. And that was the biggest thing that I dealt with my wife and my kids is I wanted to protect them and especially my kids because they don't deserve to know Mimi in the state that she's in right now. They deserve to know the Mimi that was watching them every single day prior to getting into daycare while my wife worked. They deserve to know that Mimi gets some McDonald's, they go to the park, they go to the water park, they go do this, they go do that, they grow a garden in the backyard. The interactive Mimi. They don't deserve to see Mimi's deepest, darkest struggles. And when the episode that we are presently dealing with as a family really got to some pretty hard times where me and my wife had to make a very hard decision of, I think our time is to step back for the sake of our children. And that was a very, very hard decision for us to make as a couple. You have to protect yourself and you have to be fully there within your family and within your own emotions to stuff before you can even begin to reach out and start offering solid, I'm not just saying the I'm sorries, but offering solid advice and advice, more specifically, advice with solutions, whether that is, hey, I know you're dealing with this. We're going to deal with this together. And then here are however many therapists that I think we can reach out to and I'll be there with you. In our case, we did that. It was ineffective would be the word there. So make sure before you start really getting into that mental health game, I don't want to say game, but getting into that mental health side, make sure you're strong within yourself before you start branching out and helping other people, because you start branching out to other people and taking on their problems like I did within myself I couldn't let my mother-in-law go through this. As we were taking a step back, I was still kind of playing both sides of the field. I was stepping back in front of my wife and still fully involved with the rest of the family and helping her. And then I had to battle that problem with my wife. Ultimately, I officially had to step back and be like, you know what, I'm done. And I'm not going to get into why that decision was made for me as an individual. But before you can offer solid advice to somebody, you also have to heed your own advice. And I think that's the hardest part to deal with there and to battle is kind of, hey, you know what? I've got a lot going on right now. I can't be fully effective for this individual because I've got all of this going on. I'm not saying don't try, but if you're going to do that, then you need to take your own steps within yourself to be like, hey, you know what? Me and you, I see you got a lot going on. We're going to go see a therapist. When you leave there, you go see your own therapist. You go find your own friend or your own confidant to actually have a conversation with and be raw with that individual. And don't be raw with just any Joe Smo on the street. You need to find somebody that you can truly trust. And I would say within the military and the first responder world, all of us have somebody that we can go to that I can call at any given time and be like, hey, man,
Shit, absolutely.
shit's heavy.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys giving some advice out there and tips and all this. And I know obviously the whole goal here and everything that we're doing is try to prevent the 100 questions that we go through after losing a friend or fellow first responder or service member to suicide, wondering if you missed any of the signs or saw some of the signs and didn't say anything. So I appreciate both of you being willing to do this, to come on, to talk, to share, all for the common goal of trying to normalize mental health, to have a healthy discussion around this, and to honor the people who've died by suicide and that we've lost. And now we're working, like we like to say on the podcast, is we're working collectively to watch over each other and take care of each other. So I appreciate you guys. I do have one more question for you. It's how we wrap up every single podcast. Our motto at the Overwatch Collective is one more is one less. Comes from season 1, episode 6, where we had Jack McCauley on, Army 11 Bravo infantry dude. Lost more friends to suicide upon return stateside than actually overseas. He was like, hey, one more veteran or first responder we can help is one less suicide, plain and simple. And then one more is one less kind of stuck. So once again, going to have you guys Rochambeau. Whoever loses, wins, goes first, and then share what one more is one less means to you. So, Rochambeau, what up?
Oh, no, that's tough.
Oh, yeah.
You gave me. So 2 more. Oh, that's 2. You go first.
First.
You go first.
You won.
What does one more is one less mean to you?
One more person being here makes for a better world. Works, there's always somebody to talk to. Hopefully you have enough in you to get it out to stay here. So we'd rather have you here than try and talk about what could have prevented it in the case of something happens. So yeah, one more person here just making the world better versus mourning somebody that's gone and we don't know why.
One more, one less to me is it's one more person with us going through the things, one more person to hang out with, one more person to develop friendship with, but not just friendships at the emotional level, but also that's one more person with probably more experience than I have in what we do on the military side. That's one more person with more knowledge than I have on the LE side. That's one more person who can be an effective role model within our community, because that's the sole reason. If we get down to the nitty gritty of what we're dealing with on the military side and on the LE side, because they're kind of they're the same world, just different ball fields.
Uh-huh.
You have one more person being an effective member within the community, and that's where the change actually starts, is the people being on the ground, being there for other people, and being that positive role model. And if they're not here, then we've got to, not saying we don't build other people up, but now we're having to play catch up to get back where we were.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Sweet. It's cool because every time somebody says or gives their explanation of one more is one less, it's always different, which is a cool thing to see. So this wraps up season 9, episode 3. I appreciate these two guys coming on. It is 4th of July right now. I appreciate you guys taking the time. And we got another service member here in the background that none of you all are seeing, but he's here supporting. And that's it. We're going to go celebrate 4th of July. God bless America. Semper Paratus, Semper Fidelis, all the cool things.
Yeah.
Absolutely, brother, man. Let's do
Cheers,
it.
guys.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Hope y'all enjoyed the episode. Take care and God bless America.